Story 1. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I have been married to my 37-year-old husband for 4 years. Yes, I married a man in his 30s when I was 18. No, I was not groomed. We were complete strangers, and we didn't really know our ages. We knew that we had an age gap between us, but we didn't know how big it was. When we found out the correct age, I was already pregnant, so we both decided to say, skip it. We made it this far. Why not see it to the end? He's big, sweet, and adorable. He's amazing with our daughter, and he takes really good care of me. I couldn't have asked for a better husband. My mom hates my husband, but not for the reasons you think. They went to high school together. This town is small as heck. Everybody knows everybody, and apparently how she acted back then is the same as how she acts now. She was a spoiled brat who cried when she didn't get her way. I have a memory of her throwing a tantrum like a child in a mall because my granddad wouldn't buy her the purse she wanted. She used to fight me and my siblings for our grandparents' attention all the time. My mother was in her teens when she had me, but that didn't stop her from controlling my siblings and me. We were her puppets throughout our childhood. Also, she was, and is a massive manipulator. That's why my mom hates my husband. She keeps trying to control me, and my husband standing in the way of that. It took me watching my mother-in-law interact with my husband and his siblings to realize, oh, so this is how a mother should treat their children. My mom keeps trying to separate me from him. She has been trying everything in the book to get me to leave my husband, from lying about him to making everything he does towards me a big deal. The lies that my mom told about my husband range from very hilarious to just downright infuriating. One time, my mom told me that someone sent her screenshots of my husband's conversation with his supposed mistress. Why would an anonymous person send my mom his mother-in-law screenshots of someone else's conversation instead of his wife? She told me that she overheard my husband say that he didn't love my daughter and me, that he's only using me. She planted small underwear underneath the living room couch. When I found it, I didn't immediately blame my husband. My mom wanted me to blame my husband, but I didn't. My mom thinks my husband is aggressive or controlling with me. My husband is 6'8", 300 pounds of pure muscle, but he's a golden retriever in a human's body. He's a man-child. He is always happy, very energetic, and just a sweetie. My husband loves to pick me and our daughter up, then slam us on the mattress. We think it's fun. Or, on a really special occasion, if I'm lying down, he will come up and lay his full body weight on me. She thinks that a husband shouldn't do such things, that they should treat their families like a delicate flower wrapped up in a pillow. She even told me that he was holding me captive because sometimes he would body block the doorframe. I love when my husband acts like that because when he's not acting immature, that means he's stressed or depressed. So when my husband slams us against the mattress, that means he's okay, and that's okay with me. Also, food. She thinks my husband is controlling my eating. I am intolerant to mostly all animal products. My husband realizes that I always get sick when I eat cheese or chicken, so he stops really bringing it into the house. My mom thinks that my husband is controlling my eating because, if he really loved you, he would let you eat what you want. He's going to starve you to death, not minding the fact that my acne cleared up. And I don't sound like a baby elephant when I blow my nose in the morning. But no, my husband is starving me, and he is definitely not worrying about my health. Then it's the fear-mongering. My husband has a history of violence, and my mom keeps using his history to try and put fear into me. Like I said above, my parents and my husband went to high school together. My mom told me all the times she witnessed my husband get arrested or be dragged into the principal's office for beating a kid. My husband was in the same group with my dad, so he was a violent delinquent. My mom only told me this because she was worried about my safety. I know about my husband's past behavior because he told me, and my dad told me all the times that they got into trouble. However, the way my mom described my husband was like her trying to tell me that he is or was a violent man, like my husband's going to snap on me any day and kill me and our daughter in our sleep. She told me not to have any more children with him because I would forever be attached to him, and I couldn't leave if it got too violent. My husband never laid his hands on me or our daughter. He doesn't yell at us or anything of the sort. My husband got help with these issues in his early 20s. He left the streets and has been happy-go-lucky ever since. Now, you're probably wondering why my mom is in my life when she acts like this. My mom being around me is new, as I lost my dad almost 7 months ago, right after I found out I was pregnant. He was my daddy and my daughter's best friend. I know how crazy my mom is, but I felt like I needed a parent. So I started letting her back in, but only a little bit at a time. Clearly, now, it was a mistake. My mom has been trying to control my pregnancy ever since she found out and gets so upset when my husband stops her weird nonsense. Then her tactics switch to saying that a mom should do this or a mom should do that. Keep telling me that I'm not going to be a real mom if I get a C-section, which, likely, is going to happen. Now, on to last week. My leg just gave out, and I went tumbling down the stairs. The worst pain in my life, and I pushed out my daughter's big head. My mom was freaking out while my husband was trying to find a good way to pick me up without hurting me. Luckily, my daughter was at my mother-in-law's, so I was on the couch in pain, worrying that I might lose my children. My husband went into the room to get his stuff together to take me to the hospital, leaving me alone with my mom. She got evil. She was controlling back in my childhood. But this is the most messed up thing she has done to me. She told me to get up, and that I should just walk off the pain, that I'm a mother and that I need to start powering through. I told her that I couldn't move, that my arm and leg hurt. Then that woman proceeded to grab me by the messed up arm and try to make me stand up. I was on the ground from the pain, and I couldn't stand up, so she started to basically drag me. I have never seen my husband angry before, but he pushed her away and gave her this terrifying face. He picked me up to take me to the car, while my mom was trying to argue with him. So I got to the hospital in excruciating pain, while freaking out. My husband eventually had to go back home. When he went back to the house, my mom was still there and tried to pick a fight with him. According to my husband, things got physical because my mom went into great detail about how he's abusing my daughter and me, and that she might not have proof, but she's going to prove it. He almost hit my mom, but he restrained himself and only left a bruise from where he grabbed her. To be honest, I would have slapped the teeth out of that woman. I'm back home now, and everything has gone to chaos. My mom used the altercation she had with my husband to her benefit, saying that he assaulted her and that my accident wasn't an accident. This is the worst experience I have ever had, mostly because I'm now dealing with people who blindly support her, questioning my love for my mom, because how can I be okay standing by my husband? I fell down the stairs. I even could have lost my kids, and my mom is doing this nonsense. There are a lot of people who believe my mom's story and a few who don't. I try to talk to people and tell them the truth about what really happened, but they aren't listening to me. Now my husband is being harassed. People calling him a woman beater and a piece of garbage. Someone scratched up his car and popped the tires. He is sad. He is trying to act all happy like he usually does, but I know when he's faking a smile. And my daughter is very confused. She doesn't know what's going on. I don't know how to explain why Daddy's car is all messed up or why she's not allowed to see Grandma. We haven't left the house, answered our phones, or answered the door because people won't leave us alone. I could have avoided all of this if I just never let that woman back in. This is on me. Now, what have I gone through in the past week? 1. We explained to my daughter in a kid-friendly way what Grandma has done and why she can't see her. Grandma had lied about Daddy, and Grandma made Daddy and Mommy sad. My daughter doesn't really get it, but she is okay with not seeing Grandma. 2. The police showed up. They were doing a wellness check because apparently no one has heard from me in a while. Then one of them had the brightest question and asked me why I haven't called my mother recently. She's worried about me. I haven't called my mother recently because, she told everybody and their mama that my husband pushed me down the stairs. Then a few days after, they showed up again, but this time with the accusation that my husband is abusing us. To be honest, I snapped. Nothing but angry tears and angry words came out of me. I was just so tired. I just wanted to be left alone with my family. 3. I decided to make an internet post telling people that I'm tired of them family, friends, supporters harassing my family, attacking my husband, and believing my mother's stupid lies. I get it. They are worried about me, and I'm fine with that. But I don't appreciate that they believe my mother and refuse to even listen to me. I just wanted them to stop. They didn't stop. They got worse. However, an hour after I made that post, my grandfather came to talk to me. He told me that he knows his daughter is crazy, and he would do anything in his power to make this better. I don't know exactly what my grandfather did, but the mob has stopped. You all don't know how relieved I am. They are still trying to contact me just to talk and have a meeting with me, but now I can turn on my phone without it blowing up with messages. Now I have been stuck in this house since I broke my leg. I've been getting tired of being here, so I asked my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. They have been taking care of me when my husband goes to work to take me out. They were hesitant at first, but eventually they popped me and my daughter into the van, and we surprised my husband at work with food. The incident with my husband's car made us realize that our house wasn't safe, so we invested in security. As I was eating tacos with my family, I got a notification from my security, and what do you know? It was my mom. I have been ignoring her calls and text messages, and that's a new deadly sin apparently. My mom started banging on the door with my little sister screaming that she knows I'm in there and that monster my husband is trying to take me and her grandbaby away. We were watching my mom throw a tantrum at the front door for a good solid minute because it was funny. But when my sister was ready to throw a rock through our window to get inside our house, that's when we decided to address them. We told them to get off our property, that I don't want to see my sister, and especially not my mom. And that's me talking, not my husband. My mom said, "I'm sorry, baby, please open the door." I told her no, not after everything she did. She lied to everybody and told them that my husband pushed me down the stairs and my husband assaulted her unprompted. My mother screamed he did assault her, and he even had the audacity to try to hit her. I said, "That's your fault. Don't blame my husband. What you said was disgusting, and if I were him, I would have slapped you." My mother told me that I could not talk to her like that she is my mom and her DNA runs through my veins. I told her that my dad's DNA also runs through my veins as well, and his DNA in me wants to beat your face in with a sock full of pennies. That caused my mom to go into a frenzy, so we called the cops and told them that there were 2 people at our house, that we already told them to leave, but they refused to. When police got there, they took my sister and my mom to talk with them for a little bit, and then one cop came up to the house to try to talk to us. We talked to them through the security camera and explained that we don't know those people, like a liar no matter how much they claim to be my mother and sister. We don't know them. They're strangers. Eventually, they left under the police's threat that they would be arrested, and we waited for a while to go back home, just in case my family was secretly waiting for me in the shadows or something. My mom did try to go on another social media rant, saying that, my husband is keeping me captive and stuff, but luckily my grandfather shut that down. Update. Yesterday. I was asleep when it happened, but my husband, my brothers-in-law, my sister-in-law, and the security camera explained it to me. My in-laws were on the porch when my mom pulled up. She just wanted to see me for sure I was alive. My brothers-in-law and sister-in-law didn't let her in the house and threatened to call the police. Mom accused them of helping my husband abuse my daughter and me. My husband came out, and he started arguing with my mom as well. She kept calling him the usual abuser, Nazi. Hey, that one was new. While everyone was distracted, one of my brothers-in-law went inside the house, went through the back door, went around the house, grabbed the garden hose, dragged that to the front, and then proceeded to spray my mother down with a garden hose. My mom tried to get away, but she kept slipping on the grass. Then my brother-in-law passed the hose to my husband, and then he kept spraying her. My husband chased my mom with the hose right to her car, and he didn't stop spraying. I'm pretty sure he got water in her car. He had the biggest smile during and after the hosing. I bet it felt good. Story 2. This story starts 31 years ago, but the revenge part was pure serendipity that began 2 years ago. I'm going to shorten most parts because it's a crazy ride, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have. I learned a great deal on this journey, and part of the reason for this write-up is to share that with others. The beginning. In 1990, when I was just out of middle school and my sister was still in elementary, my dad met his third wife at the only gas station in our town. They soon moved in together, and my dad abandoned us in our basement apartment to live on a shanty houseboat that didn't run to live with her. He would show up every other week and give me $1.40 for groceries. Eventually, someone figured out the situation and called my mom. We went to live with her, which was, believe it or not, worse. My dad and his shanty wife got married in 1991. Not long after, she called me and told me my dad's brain tumor had returned. It hadn't, and that he couldn't handle the stress of being around us. That the only people he could bear to be around was her and her son, Shorty, who was my age. When I called my dad to ask if this was true, he said it wasn't, and he just couldn't believe that she would say that to begin with. That was one of our last conversations until 2 years ago. The middle. There's not much in this part. I worked my way through college, living in my car from time to time. My dad and I were no contact, but I heard from family that he'd bought a house and put his son through some vocational classes. When my grandmother died, Shorty and shanty wife showed up in a truck and took all the furniture and anything else that wasn't tied down or already gone. Eventually, I went no contact with my dad's side of the family. I struggled for years, decades really, but I made it. And I have a great job and a good family now. The best revenge is living well, right? The pre-end warm-up. 2 years ago, October 2019, I got a call from my dad's brother, Alan. He told me my dad was in a nursing home in another state, great, and I needed to go see him because he needed my help. What the heck? Shorty had ghosted him, ha 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 ha. The nursing home, coincidentally, was about 20 minutes from my house, and I saw an opportunity and I went. The reunion was underwhelming. I didn't want to make amends, but I did want to hear how he wound up dumped and all alone in another state, and it was a really, really good story. Shanty wife got lung cancer and put my dad in a nursing home before she died in 2017. She suffered, and I was happy to hear it, but sad it wasn't a worse form of cancer. Shorty became his power of attorney POA when she died, and had been visiting my dad, living in my dad's house with his 2 children, and taking care of my dad's affairs since his mom died. But now he was Mia, and my dad was worried about him. He asked me to drive the hour and a half to his house to check on everything. That's all he wanted. He never even asked me how I had been. I agreed to go. I think out of morbid curiosity. I'd never even been to my dad's house. I did want to see where he lived with his real family for 30 years. I wanted to see what could have been my life. It was 50 shades of awful. The grass hadn't been cut all summer. You couldn't get to the front door for the overgrowth. There were 3 pickup trucks in the yard. 2 were full of trash. Cabs and beds and back seats, just trash. Mail, clothes, paper, shoes, garbage bags. I couldn't understand it. My dad's handicapped modified SUV was on 4 flats and full of garbage, too. I didn't have a key, so I just walked around. From what windows I could look through, the inside was in shambles and hoarded to hell. On the front and carport doors were dozens of notices from the city that they were going to condemn the place. The carport was also hoarded. Boxes and boxes stacked on each other, most rotting from the rain. The yard was full of garbage. Broken Christmas ornaments, more shoes, rusted tools, old toys. There was a letter in the mailbox notifying him that since the house was abandoned, mail would not be delivered anymore. That night, I Googled powers of attorney and how to use them. I went back the next day and showed my bedbound dad the pictures on my phone. He vowed to beat Shorty's behind, then asked me to help more. I told him I would, but he'd have to sign power of attorney over to me. All of it, durable, financial, and medical. If he didn't, he could figure this mess out by himself. He agreed, so I set about finding a lawyer who would drive to another state and do the paperwork in the nursing home. Bless that lawyer for being so good at his job, because all I did was tell him what I knew, and he put together a beautifully bulletproof POA. It was full of stuff I didn't even know I would need. He also filed the paperwork to revoke Shorty's POA, and now I'm unstoppable. We're from a small, rural town, and it's the kind of creepy, landlocked place that, no matter how long you've been gone or how far away you've been, when you go back, you'll see someone you know. Even if you don't know you know them, it's like playing 7 degrees of everybody, all the time. It's suffocating, but it can also be helpful. The beginning of the end. I got to work the next morning. I didn't know how scorched the earth would be when I finished, and I didn't want Shorty or anyone from his prolific, inbred family trying to find me, so I made sure nothing I did had my name on it. I opened a Google account for my dad and got a Google number. I opened a PO box for him in his town. I put in a mail forwarding notice. I pulled his credit report. I took the POA to my dad's small town bank, changed the address on his accounts, and got new account numbers. I requested copies of every transaction back to the day Shandy's wife had died, about 13 months worth. I had to go to the main branch, 2 hours from my house, the next day to pick the records up. I sat in the lobby all afternoon, going through the account. I cornered a service rep and got a crash course in his debits and deposits. This is when I figured out the extent of Shorty's staggering stupidity. My dad got about $5K a month in disability and Social Security every month. Twice a week, Shorty was going into a branch and withdrawing cash, all of the cash, for 13 months, and every time he did it, as the POA, he had to sign a form stating that he was acting on behalf of my dad, and that form was notarized by the bank. I went through every withdrawal and got the bank to confirm that every one of them was made by Shorty. Then I went to the house and called a locksmith. I knew it was bad, but I had no idea what was waiting for me there. He got the first door open, and the stench rolled out like a fog bank. We both gagged. 2 locks later, I was so embarrassed by what he had to see and smell, I gave him a $1.60 tip. And, with shiny new keys in hand, I called the cops. I told them I was POA for my dad, was checking on his house, and there were 3 vehicles there that didn't belong to him. He asked me if I knew who they belonged to. I said no, and I wanted them towed. He told me to call a tow company, and he would meet them there. They showed up with 2 wreckers. The tow truck guy got out and asked me for a signature. I only signed my first name. As I was signing, he asked, "Do you know Shorty?" Running on pure hatred at this point, I surprised myself. "Do you?" I asked. He said he did, and that he's a jerk. I responded, "He might be. Hey, can you do me a favor? If you see him, will you tell him M&W&M is coming for him?" His bravado evaporated. He knows a crazy lady when he sees one. They towed the trucks. When everyone was gone, I opened the door in the carport to peek in. The sun was going down and it was dark in the house. I heard something faint, and after some seconds realized it was the roaches and the rats doing their roach and rat stuff. I could smell it all in my hair. I sat on the carport steps and watched the sun go down. I was mad. Just so cosmically livid that 72 hours was all it took to dissolve 3 decades, and here I was, stinking and listening to the rats and cleaning everyone else's mess up. Taking time away from my family, and for what? I had a coming to Jesus with myself. I could either bow out now or double down, and the thing is, I'm tenacious. To a gosh darn fault. I had to be to survive, and this was a bone I couldn't put down. The thought of Shorty's life being upended, his only source of income probably disappearing literally overnight, and my dad having to hear, secondhand from me, that he's broke and alone, made me absolutely giddy. I desperately wanted them both to lose what they had left, so I decided I was going to triple dog down. That night, I Googled restraining orders, and it was surprisingly easy to get one. I went to the courthouse in my hometown, went to the clerk's office, and told her I needed a restraining order. I filled the form in at a rickety little table while I was there. I wasn't prepared to see a judge that day, but she took the form and said, "Okay, I'll see if the judge is still here." That kind of scared me. She took me to his chambers, And as I was waiting, I looked around and saw he had certificates of appreciation hanging up from various veterans groups. Then I wiped my palms and thought, fish in a barrel. He asked about my dad's stint in the Marines, and about the Department of Defense office logo on my sweater. I'm a contractor. He read my form and granted the temporary order. I would have to go back for the permanent one, where Shorty would be able to argue against it. Then I went home and Googled biohazard companies and elder abuse statutes in my state. I hired a biohazard company to shovel all the mess out of the house for $7K. I would have paid double. They found my dad's mummified dog under some pizza boxes in the master bedroom. They sent me pictures and salvaged some papers. Shorty was served during this time, and a hearing was set. I got to work collecting and documenting everything. I made pictures and spreadsheets and timelines with cross-references because now they had my full attention. The paid versions of Truthfinder and Trello seriously got me through all this. In my spare time, I went to the nursing home and gave my dad 8x10 copies of the pictures of his dead dog. From every angle. Before court, I went to the police station nearby and told them I wanted to report an elder abuse crime. A white-collar detective came out and told me it was a domestic matter and that since Shorty had been POA, everything he had done was legal. And this was the day I got to teach a small-town detective about the fiduciary responsibilities of a POA. Thanks, Google, I handed him a copy of the statute with the applicable sections highlighted. Then I handed him a thick folder with bank statements, pictures of the hoarded house and dead dog, a copy of my dad's credit report that showed he was tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt, and a spreadsheet listing every cash withdrawal with a running total of the stolen amounts. The grand total was just over $130K in cash. That's not including the lost value of the house or the credit cards he opened and used. I told him he could keep that folder since it wasn't the only one I had. Then I told him I would wait for a case number, and I sat down. He came back about 30 minutes later and apologized, said I had a case, and gave me a case number. Then I headed over to the courthouse. This is the end. There were other people there, and I had to wait my turn. And while I was waiting, that stupid individual schlepped his sloppy self into the courtroom, by himself and obviously, literally, non-metaphorically, dirty. His shoes were untied, and that turned my giggle box over. Then it was our turn, and we stood up. The same judge asked me some questions, asked him some questions, and asked me if I had any proof. I had a very thick folder of it. The judge asked me if I had gone to the police. Well, yes, sir, I have. Do you have a case number? As a matter of fact. The order was granted, permanently and for life, but not before the judge halted proceedings and told Shorty he needed a lawyer. Someone told me that the courthouse would have a copy of my dad's DD 214 discharge papers, so while I was there, I got a copy of those, because why not? I also used my POA to take Shanty wife off the deed to the house. That way, if my dad died and it went into probate, Shorty had no immediate claim. I also went and got copies of my dad's birth certificate and Shanty wife's death certificate. Technically, stepchildren can't request that info. But the clerk who waited on me recognized my dad's name and told me she lost her virginity to my Uncle Alan in the 60s and went to my grandparents' funeral. So I got all the forms I wanted. Shanty wife left my dad $50K in life insurance. About $35K of that was left since Shorty was spending my dad's money and not his mom's. So I opened an Ally account and transferred every penny over. Then I set up recurring transfers for the monthly deposits. At any given time, there was no more than $100 in his account. I also found a house flipper that paid me enough for the house to pay off his mortgage. That's the thing about probate. There's nothing to fight over if there's nothing there, and I made sure there was absolutely nothing there. My dad died thinking he still owned a house. Speaking of which, this is about the time I found my dad's life insurance policies. They were up to date, and Shanty wife was the beneficiary. My POA didn't allow me to change beneficiaries, but it allowed me to assign them. And since Shanty wife was dead, there was technically no beneficiary. This is where the death certificates came in handy. I assigned my sister and me as beneficiaries. Irrevocable, too. which means that the only way to change that is for my dad and me and my sister to agree to it. I kept my dad in the dark about all this. The only thing he ever really knew about was the restraining order and his dead dog. I found out that he had purchased the gravesite next to Shanty's wife and wanted to be buried next to her. That was just never going to happen. I googled national cemeteries and found out he qualified to be in one since he was a disabled Vietnam-era veteran. So I arranged for that instead. All the cherries on top. My dad died in June this year, and I was there. He's buried in a national cemetery far away where no one will ever go visit him. The only obituary I ran was on the funeral home's website, and that only for insurance purposes. I wrote it as vague as possible. There was no service. His urn is purple, the color he hated most. I got a call in August from the prosecutor's office in my hometown. The lady on the other end is married to my first cousin because of course she is. That's how it works there. Shorty was arrested just after midnight on July 1st, was still in jail, and had been arraigned on felony elder abuse charges. He's facing 10 years in prison. She told me not to expect the trial anytime soon, as it can take up to 3 years for that to happen. I told her that was awesome since the uncertainty will hopefully haunt him. And after all that, he's still got prison to look forward to. He lost his kids. He lost his dad. I'm spending his mom's cancer money. He lost his free house and trucks. He has no credit and will never be able to get any sort of decent job and will, hopefully for a long time, not be able to find a decent place to live. And I sleep like a baby. Story 3. So this was some 10 years ago, and while the conversation is paraphrased, I remember it like it was yesterday. So, background. At the time, I was working grave and swing as a casino player's host in Reno, Nevada. For those who don't know what this job is, we take care of the high rollers, make sure they get comps, dining and hotel reservations, get invites to tournaments, limo rides, you name it. I wore a nice black blazer with a name tag, slacks, comfortable but professional shoes, hair and makeup done. The days I worked swing, I was off at 3 a.m., but after waiting for the bus and the ride home, I would make it to my place at about 5 a.m. Directly across the street from my home was a Walgreens. I stopped in a lot of mornings to grab a protein shake, pick up prescriptions, etc. But on Wednesday mornings, they put out a lot of clearance items. You could snag small appliances dirt cheap. So I was always there on Wednesdays stocking up on Christmas and birthday presents, etc. The employees and manager knew me by sight, and some by name. I was usually a zombie after work, I think like most people, lol. And this Wednesday was no different. I was looking over the latest selection, trying to decide if I needed a new coffee maker or just wanted one because it was clearanced for like $5. A woman was next to me, speaking Tagalog into her phone. I don't speak it, but Reno has a pretty large Filipino community, so I could at least recognize it. Her language is not important to the story. It just struck me how odd the little things we remember are. She finished her conversation and looked at me. Can I get a discount on this? I don't remember what this was. Some small appliance. The box is smashed up. No idea, I told her. But I would ask to plug it in to test it before I bought it if the box is damaged. I have no idea if anyone can actually do that, but it seemed reasonable to me. Why would you sell something that doesn't work? She demanded. I had no idea at this point she thought I worked there. I thought she was making conversation. In my defense, I was half asleep and just wanted a good deal on a darn stick blender. Oh, I told her, I absolutely wouldn't sell it. But I'm not in the business of selling things anyway. Oh, so you are too good and important to sell things. That is just for the low employees. I finally looked at her. Until then, I was pretty focused on staying awake. I could see she was getting angry. It dawned on me that I still had my name tag on. I slipped it off. They are the kinds with magnets, not pins, and stuck it in my pocket. Oh, sorry, I forgot to take this off. I don't actually. I started to say I don't work here. But she was having none of that. Oh, you think you are too good to help me? Just because I am Filipina? She may have said Filipino. I confess I don't know which is correct and going only off memory. My money is good, you. She said something in Tagalog that did not sound flattering. You think you can trick me taking off your name tag? I just sighed. I don't want your money. I don't work here. I am shopping. Please leave me alone. She ignored everything I just said except for, oh, you won't be getting my money because you need to give me this free for not helping me. Ma'am, I tried to reason with her. I can't give you that. I really don't work here. If you take it without paying, that is stealing. Oh, now you think I am poor and a thief? What the heck? Where did poor come from? I want to talk to the manager of the whole store. Lady, I turned back to the shelf. I wish you would talk to anyone but me. I didn't use strong language because I was angry. I just have a colorful vocabulary. She stomped off, her heels making little tick 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 sounds on the linoleum. I decided I did need another coffee maker, and that stick blender. As I was putting both in my cart, I hear tick 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 tick. Great, she's back. But she is not alone. Tom, the store manager, was with her. There she is, the woman shrieked. She called me a poor thief and said a bad word at me. I want you to fire her and make her poor. Weird obsession with poverty. Tom looked at me confused. What is happening? I grinned and held up my coffee maker. Shopping. Tom was even more confused. But why are you insulting her and using strong language? She thinks I work here and wanted me to let her steal an appliance. Okay, I know a bit of an exaggeration, but she started it. This was the moment that her medication stopped working. In a very loud mix of English and Tagalog, she shrieked out our entire interaction. Surprisingly, she told it correctly too, except that I didn't put my name tag away to trick her. Tom was done at this point. He just looked at me and said, "You're fired." The woman grinned maliciously at me, grabbed her smashed-up box, and stormed off with Tom as I shrugged and made my way over to the allergy medication, or some other area of the store. I don't 100% remember, but I have terrible allergies, so that seems likely. At the register, Tom asked me what really happened. I told him everything, including how I told her I wished she'd talk to anyone but me. Tom laughed and told me I was still fired. Yay, I grinned. Do I get a severance package? Tom laughed harder. To be fair, you did use strong language at her. Plus, you don't actually work here, so no severance package. That's it. I shopped there for many years before I moved. I never saw her again, so I am sure she went on content with getting me fired and making me poor.